What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Well, 2021 has arrived, and today we want to talk to you about a little bit about our plans for 2021, what you can expect to see from our channel, and also some things to consider if you're planning on traveling in 2021.
So one of the biggest things to consider is obviously COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, COVID restrictions are not going to go away. We all know that we're going to have a new president sworn in here soon. Who knows what's going to happen with that? A lot of these COVID restrictions could be changing. Some states, they may change for the better. Some states, maybe for the worse, depending on where you're going. Just because it's a new year doesn't mean that the restrictions are going to go away. Doesn't mean COVID's going to go away. So obviously, for those of us that do travel full-time and plan on continuing to travel, we need to do it, but we do need to do it responsibly. Be aware that there are going to be possibly some changing restrictions from state to state, depending on how many COVID cases they have, how many new cases pop up. So one of the ways that we handle that is to stay really, really flexible. Last year, we had our trip all mapped out. We had reservations made. We had every stop planned from Florida to South Dakota, every single stop in every state. I mean, it was planned very, very meticulously. This year, we are not doing that. What we've decided to do is pick some general areas that we would like to visit. And once we get on the road, so we have kind of our first area that we know we're going to for sure. So we're going to get to that point, and then from there we'll reevaluate what restrictions each state has, and determine if we're going to continue with our plan that we kind of have in place, or if we need to alter that plan a little bit. And with the uncertainty around the COVID restrictions, we're just trying to stay super flexible this year. So that's one way we're going to kind of combat these COVID restrictions that each state has in place.
Right, and another thing is expectations. So when visiting the national parks and some of the state parks, places that have visitor centers, the parks may be open, but the visitor centers may not be, and that's what we kind of ran into last year. Yeah,
we ran into that quite a lot. Actually, almost everywhere we went, especially in the beginning. So we left at the end of March from Florida last year. We spent April through the end of July out west, and just about every visitor center was closed. So we got to visit the parks, but couldn't really visit any of the visitor centers. Couldn't go inside. Any attractions that were inside were pretty much all closed. So while we did get to see a lot out there, it did take away from the experience, not being able to go in and just kind of get the full experience. When you go to some of these bigger national parks and state parks that have visitor centers, it really adds to the experience and really adds to what you can learn about the park and kind of the history of the park. Without being able to visit the visitor centers and see what they have inside there, it does definitely take away from the experience.
So another thing that's very important is to do your research before you head to a certain area to see if the area that you're interested in is actually open, because just because most parks are open doesn't mean they all will be.
Yeah, even inside the individual states, we ran across situations where maybe certain state park visitor centers would be open and some not. And even the national parks, it wasn't, as the restrictions started to ease up a little bit, some of them were open, or the visitor center would be open kind of on a limited basis. They would have certain areas of it open. So just do your research so that you don't get somewhere and find out either they're limiting the capacity of the campground, or maybe it's not completely open, it's just partially open. It's just, it's really important to do your research up front. That way you don't drive a long way to get to a campground or get to a park that you're super excited about and find out that it's not it's not going to be the experience that you're expecting, and then be disappointed.
So another thing to consider during this pandemic is supplies. You're going to want to make sure you stock up when you can because of availability of some of the higher demand items.
Yeah, I know locally right now where we're at in Florida, we're starting to see it again. The paper products, your toilet paper, your paper plates, your paper towels, very, very, very limited quantities of those in the stores right now. So the fact that we're starting to see some of those shortages already tells me that once we get on the road and we're traveling, it could be very hit and miss as to what you can get your hands on at some of these stores. That's something we ran into last year. If a store that we were at didn't have something, we said, nah, we'll just pick it up at the next store. But the next store didn't have it either, and we got into a situation where some of our stuff was getting really, really low. We had some supplies getting pretty low last year. So this year, if knowing that there appears to be a shortage, whether that's a artificial shortage from everybody stocking up or whether it's an actual shortage, knowing that, we are gonna stock up when we can. Obviously, we have a 34-foot fifth wheel. We don't have a tremendous amount of extra space to store tons and tons of stuff. So we're gonna try to make some areas, make some space, find some creative ways to store some things so that if we do get to a store, they have some stock on stuff, we can go ahead and stock up while we can, instead of being stuck trying to run around, when we're out of something and find it, locally.
So another thing that you might want to consider when traveling in 2021 is it seems that the RV sales are up and there's a lot more people traveling.
Yeah, definitely going to be a lot more people traveling this year. If you're on any of the Facebook groups, if you are paying attention at all, you're going to realize that the RV industry, the amount of people buying RVs, the amount of people that are deciding to travel full time is definitely up. It's not everybody by any means, but there's definitely a lot more people that are kind of making the transition to this lifestyle. So there are going to be more people to deal with as far as getting reservations, more people at the parks when you visit them. So there are a few ways that you can kind of you're not going to escape the people, but a few ways that you can still have an enjoyable time without being around tons and tons of people. So the number one thing you can do if you're going to these super popular places, and we can't say this enough and we can't stress this enough, go early in the day.
Yes, that's going to do a couple things for you. You're going to avoid the crowds, and you're going to have the best chance at seeing wildlife and the best experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's well worth rolling out of bed early to get in there, to get in these parks early. And it doesn't matter what park it is. Even if it's a state park, national park, get there early. You're going to have a more enjoyable experience with less people. So,
and that goes for hiking too, especially the popular hikes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know we harp on that a lot, but man, we've found that the experience is so much better.
Yes, we've had firsthand experience with arriving with the crowds and arriving before the crowds.
Absolutely. Another thing you're going to want to do is don't just get laser focused on visiting some of these national parks. They're beautiful, they're great, but there are areas around the national park, outside the national parks, even if it's an hour or two drive. There are some beautiful, beautiful areas outside of all these national parks. And while everybody wants to see these super popular spots, you might be able to find some real hidden gems by doing just a little bit of research and finding some areas outside of the national park. We did that in Montana, and found one of the most beautiful places we've ever been. Little swinging bridge. I know, talk about the swinging bridge all the time, but I think the reason it sticks in our mind so much is because it was such a surprise. You think of Montana, you think of obviously you can get to the north entrance of Yellowstone from there. You can go into Glacier National Park from there. Those are obviously the huge attractions to Montana. But man, we drove just a few hours west and just found an amazing spot. Same thing. We drove about an hour east and got to see a bunch of mountain goats all by ourselves at this overlook. So, you know, meanwhile, the trails in Glacier were jam-packed where they were closing roads, and we're 45 minutes to an hour away, standing on an overlook completely alone with mountain goats on the side of the hill, and you know, getting some beautiful pictures and being able to watch, you know, without any crowd around. So we didn't allot ourselves enough time when we went to Yellowstone and down to Grand Teton to really do that, but we're going to have some more time on our hands while we're out that way this time. So we are definitely going to look, kind of expand our radius of when we're searching for things to do in the area, and try to maybe get away from some of the really big crowds and find some of these more you know, more hidden gem type places.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing to consider is traveling full time. It's not all just great, no problems. It can be stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a permanent vacation. I know people that don't travel full time. You know, when you express to them that you travel full time, they instantly think that you're always on vacation. Must be like always being on vacation. Well, I think anybody that's done this at all knows that it is anything but a constant vacation. I feel like we work harder living in our RV than we did when we had a house, almost.
Yeah, and it's kind of different kind of working harder.
That's true. Yeah, it's not the same. But regardless, it's still a lot of work, and it's especially a lot of work if you're staying on top of your maintenance. And I would say that is one of the biggest things that we really try to keep up on in order to mitigate some of the stress that we feel. You know, when things go wrong, you're going to catch a lot of things early or before they break if you stay on top of your maintenance. I mean, it's not easy to stay on top of your maintenance when you're traveling and you're on the road. That may mean, you know, if you do a lot of maintenance yourself, like we try to do, that might mean changing your oil in an auto parts parking lot, in your tow vehicle, in your truck, in your motorhome. That might mean, you know, taking care of your wheel bearings if need be on the road. You know, at a campground, there's not the easiest places in the world to do your maintenance. It can be a little difficult sometimes, especially if the campground kind of doesn't like people working on their stuff at the campground. But you know, there's always somewhere you can go to do your maintenance. So just stay on top of your maintenance. I mean, you're just gonna save yourself so much headache if you're diligent about keeping up with your maintenance, even though there's a lot more things going on. You're traveling, you're on the road, you're moving from spot to spot, you're seeing all these, you know, all these new things, all these awesome sights. But through all that, don't forget about your maintenance.
So another thing that can help alleviate some stress is to not travel so quickly.
Yeah, we kind of got stuck in that mode last year. So when our plans changed, you know, we were planning on being in South Dakota all through the summertime. When our plans changed and we knew that we were not going to be in South Dakota, we immediately kind of started looking at the map, and like when we started to realize how many places that we could go from South Dakota, you know, Montana into Wyoming, down into, you know, even we were looking at even going down into Colorado. I mean, we really got into this mode where we wanted to cover as much ground as we could. We ended up moving really quickly, and while I wouldn't say we got burned out, but we did burn through a lot of money. It's expensive. When you move fast like that, and we were trying to stay at National Forest campgrounds, we were trying to stay places that, you know, use our Passport America membership to stay at some places. So we did save some money that way, but there's just no way around it. You know, if you're moving every 2 to 4 days constantly and covering a lot of ground in between, there's a lot of land out west.
Yeah, and the amount of money that you're going to spend on fuel is tremendous.
And not only fuel, but just overall wear and tear. Go back to the maintenance. That means I'm going to have to do more frequent maintenance on the truck. So I'm going to have to do more frequent maintenance on the trailer, you know, just to stay on top of things. So, you know, it all kind of compounds when you move fast. It's not just the fact that you're spending obviously a lot of money in fuel, but you're also putting that additional wear and tear on your equipment a little bit faster. So again, to kind of alleviate some of that this year, and to just kind of enjoy the experience more, we're going to really slow down. We may still end up moving frequently, but if we do, it's going to be in a very, very small radius. So we're not going to be making those big 5 and 6 hour drives every 2 to 3 days, 4 days. Just go, maybe an hour or two up the road, and then that'll be our next spot for a while. So while we will still be moving, we're not going to move as far as quickly as we did last time.
Right. So another big one is if you work remotely, you're going to want to make sure you do your research about cell signal in that area.
So we need cell signal for our hotspot to connect. We've only been led astray once by Campendium. For the most part, it's been very, very reliable. We've researched just about every place that we've stayed on Campendium to see what it says for cell signal in that area, and it's always been really, really close. One spot, but even that spot, I think it only said it had like 2 bars of service, and when we got there, I guess technically it wasn't wrong, because if you went way down to the right spot in the park, you could get a little bit of service, but where we were at didn't have any. So I guess on a technicality maybe they weren't wrong, but for the most part, if a park is like that, you'll usually see that in a review. Somebody will usually say, we had signal in this area of the park but not this area or something. But other than that, Campendium's been very reliable. That's what we'll continue to use going forward. But we do see a lot of posts that people get somewhere and they find out that they don't have cell signal, and now they're in a bit of a panic because they need to work or they need to be able to get online for whatever reason, and they have no signal. And now they're scrambling to try to find a different place to go to. Now they're in a bit of a panic. Which brings us to another thing. Don't panic. It's easy to panic when something goes wrong. Not to say that we haven't had situations where we weren't really sure what we were going to do, but don't panic. All that does is it clouds your decision-making ability. If something doesn't go right, for whatever reason, just take a step back, take a deep breath.
Yeah, look at your different options, talk about it, make sure you communicate.
And no matter what it is, you can usually figure it out if you don't panic. You don't have to figure everything out right now. If you get in a situation, something bad's happening, don't try to figure out the whole plan right now. Just figure out what your very next step needs to be. So that's kind of the motto that we live by. We don't have to figure everything out right now. Let's just figure out what we need to do to address the immediate issue.
Right, one step at a time.
Right, and then once we address that, then we'll figure out our next step. And then before you know it, we've worked through the issue and we're back on the road.
Right.
So just don't panic. I know it's easier said than done, especially depending on what the issue is. But do your best to not panic.
All right, and so that brings us to our plans for the first half of 2021.
Last year we were supposed to go out through Texas on our way to South Dakota. We did not get to do that, so this year we're going to do it. Kind of our first. We have a few short stops in between, but more just kind of overnight stops to get to Texas. So our first kind of destination that we're looking forward to going to is going to be Texas. Based on kind of the current COVID restrictions, Texas seems like a pretty safe bet. They've been pretty consistent. They haven't been all over the map with lockdowns and not lockdowns and closing this and not closing that. So that seems kind of like a good safe bet for us to go to first, to kind of get back on the road, get our bearings, evaluate kind of where everything is at in this in the world of COVID, and then we can take our next step.
Yeah, and explore a new state. We haven't been to Texas in our RV yet, so we're looking forward to that, and from there we'll be headed back to South Dakota. So Dylan's really excited about that. He loved Custer State Park so much that he wants to spend his birthday there. So South Dakota in March. People might think that's crazy.
And it's I don't know if it's crazy, but it's going to be cold for sure. But it was cold when we were there last year. We were there in April last year, right at the beginning of April. We were there, so we're gonna bump that up a little bit and get there a little earlier this year. As far as getting to South Dakota, while we're in Texas, we're gonna keep a close eye on the weather. We've kind of built enough time in Texas into our schedule so that if we see a break in the weather, we can kind of head that way earlier. If the weather is really terrible and we need to wait a little bit before we head up there, then we can do that as well. So we kind of had those first steps planned out, a time frame kind of built around being able to watch the weather so that we can get to South Dakota with no issues.
Right, and another thing that in South Dakota when we were there before, we did not get to check out everything that we wanted to, so we will be exploring some more of that stuff that we didn't get to do while we were there the first time.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore was, technically it was closed. You could still visit it, but nothing was open. They were doing a lot of construction at the time, so it wasn't really, I mean, yeah, we saw Mount Rushmore, but
we didn't get the full experience.
Yeah, we didn't see it the way we wanted to see it, so we're going to visit that again. We did not get to go to the Crazy Horse Memorial, which is something that we really would like to see as well. We're going to revisit Badlands National Park while we're there, spend a few days there instead of just driving out and visiting it and driving back. So we kind of have a bit of an itinerary there in South Dakota. Not necessarily a lockdown, set in stone time frame, but some things that we would like to, definitely some things that we want to see again, and we'll never pass up the opportunity to stay in Custer State Park. That is a beautiful, beautiful place in a beautiful area, and we're looking forward to getting back there for sure.
Yeah, we're super excited.
From there, we plan on heading west. We want to see Yellowstone National Park again. We would like to visit at a different time of year. We were there right in the middle of summer last year. Obviously, heavy tourist time in Yellowstone. We're going to be there a little earlier this year, so hopefully, visiting Yellowstone at a different time of year, I'm sure it'll be a whole different experience for us. So we're not going to spend a ton of time there, but a lot of that again is going to depend on the weather at the time of year that we're there.
Right, and from there, we are looking forward to exploring Idaho, another new state for us. Supposed to be a lot of beautiful areas there, and then from there we're really looking forward to Utah and the 5 national parks there and some beautiful places in between. That was on our original itinerary that got canceled when we first left in March of last year, so we're super excited about that.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things we were bummed out about when everything got canceled and shut down last year. Was we were planning on coming up through Utah and really hitting all that stuff in Utah down there, all the national parks, a couple of really awesome state parks that they have. So we were going to do the whole Utah experience there on the way to South Dakota, and all that stuff got canceled on us. So we're going to visit this time, and hopefully
yeah, obviously these plans are tentative based on COVID restrictions, traveling during a pandemic. I mean, like we said earlier, this isn't going to go away overnight, so we've got to stay flexible with it, but that's our hope that really happens this time.
The other thing too, though, is if everything isn't going to shut down all at one time, so if certain things do close down, then we'll just make a different plan. I mean, we don't have this set in stone. So, we're well aware that anything could happen. We have talked about it, and we do have kind of a backup plan in place. If these things start to shut down, we can't go to the places that we're thinking that we're going to be able to go. We have talked about a couple different options, kind of backtracking through some areas that are open. You just have to make the best of it. I mean, you can't control what's going to be open and closed, or if they're going to shut things down. So staying flexible is very important. So we've kind of talked about what that might look like if things start to shut down again. So we have kind of loose backup plan in place.
Yeah, but if things work out the way we're hoping and we get to visit Utah from there, we're planning on trying to hit Nevada for Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Those were also kind of on our radar earlier last year, so we're going to try to hit those before we start working our way back to Florida for probably the end of the summer for a couple of appointments that we do need to take care of. But you know, doing the planning and looking at some loose dates and time, you know, we think that's doable as far as being able to, you know, not be rushed through those dates. That pretty much will wrap up our first half of 2021 if things go like planned. If not, then that plan is quite possible to change entirely.
Absolutely.
As we've said before, sometimes changing the plan is the plan, whether you like it or not.
That's right. Obviously, we'll be making lots of videos about all this stuff. Our goal is to get 2 videos out a week, so we will get those videos out to you guys. We're looking forward to doing them. We look forward to making the videos. We really enjoy doing it.
And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment. We're happy to answer any questions for some of the places we've been, or if you have a specific question when we're there as far as restrictions or anything else that we can help with. We always try to respond to the comments that people leave.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you guys down the road.